Welcome to Women Working in Wealth from the American College Center for Women in Financial Services. Join us as we showcase unique career opportunities and dispel myths surrounding the financial services profession through conversations with industry leaders.
Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Lindsey Lewis. For those of you that might be new here, I'm the director and chair of the American College's Center for Women. Today, we have a very special guest on our Women Working in Wealth podcast. I'm happy to introduce Sanya Rizvi. Sanya is a market director at JP Morgan Wealth Management. She also proudly holds the Wealth Management Certified Professional designation from the college. We are thrilled to get into our conversation with her. Sanya, thank you for being our guest today and for your time. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. It's the beginning of summer, the start of summer camp. I couldn't be happier.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all? Best time of year, for sure.
Best time of year, yes.
So we love for our guests to tell us about themselves and a little bit about your career journey thus far.
Sure, I would love to. So thanks so much, Lindsey, for having me. I've known the American College since the beginning of my career 22 years ago, so it's an honor to be here with you. So I have an interesting story, I think, because I was really focused on becoming an advisor at some point. I was a teacher in Toronto, Canada. That's what I did right out of school, and I loved it. I'm from Canada, so it's a different educational system. You basically choose your career as you're getting your undergraduate degree. And I just knew that I wanted to do something else. I did a pretty good job of enhancing my college experience with having a lot of different groups of friends. So I was in the kinesiology program, education program. I had a science track. I joined the track team. I was in a lot of business clubs. So I had a lot of different friends in college. And I noticed a certain group of friends that were, in Wall Street, and they seemed to have a great track, and they had a lot of male allies that helped them along the way. So I really watched them and noticed them. And I was very fascinated about the field in general. And I noticed too that women were not well represented. And so I wanted to change that, and I think go in a completely separate direction. So that's what I did. And then, of course, moving from Canada to America, it's a completely different financial system in terms of, I didn't even know what an IRA was when I first started, but I learned the business from the ground up. I had studied it in Canada, of course, and I think it just prepared me extremely well. I was an advisor for 8 years at 2 different firms. I started at a prominent Wall Street firm. I had a great training. I did well, and I was asked to join a prominent team on the West Coast. And then I became an advisor in Boston, Massachusetts, and then I became a manager in 2008. I joined JP Morgan Wealth Management 4.5 years ago, and it was such a great decision because I love the culture at this firm. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow, just a crazy, turn of events. I think one thing that really stood out to me was kind of the aspect of learning a whole new system. And so we love to ask our guests about their money story. So, your belief about money and how it's shaped you both personally and professionally. And I think that you might have a unique lens. So tell us a little bit about your money story.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think everyone has one. So I feel like there's 2 themes in my money story. So when I was a child, my parents were first generation. They came to Canada in the 60s. And, money and resources was always scarce. It was always a thing that we didn't have enough of. So that was something. So saving, budgeting was definitely a theme that I picked up on. And I learned that my parents were not the best budgeters. So, you kind of learn, I'm not going to be like my parents in that area. And education was a big theme too. So my mom really pushed for us to go to public school in downtown Toronto. And, randomly there was a father that wanted to teach my 8th grade class like a stock investing game. So we pulled out the newspaper, we picked stocks for a game. And that had an impact on me randomly. It's like the book, Random Walk Down Wall Street. So I feel like saving, budgeting. I had a job at a very young age. My first job was at the age of 13. I worked at Baskin Robbins making minimum wage, and my mom was a working mother. So that definitely had an impact on me. I always wanted a job. In fact, I couldn't wait until I had a job, had to wait until the legal age. And so I was saving, and then the investing part just kind of came along for the ride. Going to school in the 90s, I had no understanding or awareness of the stock market. But then when I went into the working world, that's when it all kind of came together, and I was investing from pretty young age, I think.
That is quite the story and such a cool aspect of learning about money. You mentioned earlier that you've been in the industry for 22 years. So obviously you started at the age of 5, but
you're too kind.
But how has the industry changed over those 22 years?
Yeah, I'm actually proud of the industry because I feel like it's evolved in a good way. And I feel like the firm that I work for now, JP Morgan Wealth Management, really puts the client in the center of all of that. And I'll tell you why. So I feel like there's 2 themes that have improved because of technology and access to investing. So those 2 things have become better for investors in general. And I feel like the focus on having a financial plan is becoming more and more evident for many people. So that's really important. And I think it has become better for people and investors. And I'm particularly proud of my firm because I feel like they have put the client in the middle and built a lot of resources around how the client and the evolving landscape in which the client wants to invest on their own terms. So, people are working. If I look at myself, I just handle everything in my household and I kind of keep my husband in the know. And it shouldn't be that way. There should be better communication, and there should be, an ongoing dialogue among many generations, many family structures. And so I feel like my firm has done a very good job actually making things available. And an example that I'll put out there is, there's a lot of great resources and content that's available at chase.com/the know, for example, some additional resources that people can use. They can read articles. They can, if they're interested in a certain topic like inflation, they can go and read more about it and what we think about it as a firm. So I think in summary, all these changes have made it easier and better for the individual investor to invest today in 2022 as opposed to when I entered in 2000.
Wow, so powerful to see the evolution and to see that clients become the center. And like you mentioned, technology and access, 2 really large levers that have changed the industry. So for people that are unfamiliar with roles in this industry and titles, et cetera, we'd love to hear more about what it means to be a market director. What does it mean? Explain your job to us.
Yeah, so I wear a lot of different hats, but in summary, I help financial advisors grow their business. And that means a lot of different things. So, the skill set behind that, how we always have to be learning every day, every year, every month. So developing their skill set, teaching. So my background being a teacher, I think is really helpful. So, teaching them, developing their skill set, and then also helping them grow too, their development. So through the American College, for example, different credentials you can get and different things that you can do. So I think that's also really important. And then of course, recruiting is a big part of my job as well. So that's a market director at JP Morgan Wealth Management.
Such important aspects, you're right? Growing business, developing talent, recruiting, retaining. it sounds like you might be personifying our mission, which is to promote, advance, and advocate for women. And that's what you do in your role. Thanks so much, Sanya. Let's take a break.
Want to join our community of women working in wealth? Follow us on your social media platform of choice at Women Working in Wealth to stay informed about upcoming events, industry developments, and our fellow flock members making waves in the field. We hope you'll join us in our mission to break the bias.
We are ready to jump back into our conversation with Sanya. Obviously, from when you entered the industry, if you role play, a number of years ago, what was it like working through, market crashes, but specifically, 2008?
Yeah, it's definitely made me a stronger advisor, manager, however you want to put it. It was scary. 2008 was scary. I remember I was an advisor in Boston. I had a lot of clients in the industry. So I remember I was transitioning out of, I'm no longer a financial advisor. Here is your person going forward. And I was transitioning to being a manager. And so one thing that I took away from that experience was, being a great voice of reason, not only to clients, but then also to my advisors, because no one was taking care of the advisors. And you could literally see them, going through their own, issues and things that they had to deal with. So I think just being there for them and being a sounding board for them was something that I really took away. And I've become a stronger investor, stronger, coach, stronger advisor because of that experience, for sure. Because I've experienced at least two very strong market crashes. 2008 was one of them. And it makes me more prepared for, say, today's volatility.
Absolutely. Speaking about today's volatility, I saw a recent chart of, kind of all the different variations over the last couple of decades. And someone circled the top and the bottom of all of those. And they were like, this is the reason you need an advisor or you need a manager, is because of all of this volatility that happens. I'm going to be that person that helps manage expectations and helps you become a stronger investor, just like you're doing with, your management style as well as with clients. You did mention that developing is really important as a market director, and part of development is educational pursuits. And we have the Wealth Management Certified Professional designation. So walk us through getting the acronym WMCP designation here at the American College.
Sure, I would love to. So first of all, I was really grateful that my company, JP Morgan Wealth Management, had this available. So I jumped up at the opportunity. Some of my new advisors go through the program. So what a better way for me to help them, because it is self-directed and you do have to figure out a lot of things on your own. So I figured that I need to do that to help my team. But then also I encourage some colleagues to do it with me, because I think it's so important to sharpen that saw. Going back to, Stephen Covey and the 7 habits, it's just so important to do that all the time. So, and that's definitely the culture at JP Morgan Wealth Management. So doing it in the pandemic, I did it in 2021. What better time to do that? I had an 8-year-old boy at the time at home. So self-study, doing things on your own terms was really important. So that was very helpful. The videos, the content was extremely timely and helpful as well. And, I have to say, when it came time for me to take the test, there was one instructor in particular that really went above and beyond her call of duty. And it was a great experience. So I thank the American College for that.
Well, we're glad that you were able to complete it, and that, the self-study pace, the asynchronous class really gave you that autonomy during a really what was stressful time for a lot of people, during the pandemic, to pursue some educational pursuits. And the other thing that I'll, shout out to JP Morgan is their commitment to women and DE&I, and how they are always helping to attract and develop talent. And so that kind of leads us to our next question, which is around, the business case to have a career in financial services, and especially for women, women of color, and diversity. So maybe walk us through our thoughts of why this is a great place to have a job, a career.
Yeah, I actually think this career is amazing for women specifically because of the skill set that's needed, the patience, the education, listening to people's unique needs. Because I mentioned earlier that I had the great fortune to work in great markets, so San Francisco Bay Area, Boston, and naively I thought, oh, all the clients are going to be they're going to be the same with the culture of where they live. But now that I can reflect, every client is so different with so many competing goals, so many competing things happening, and staying focused. You truly need a coach. And so I think women are just naturally that wonderful coach that's going to help people through their different challenges of life, their money challenges, so to speak. And of course, there is flexibility with this career too. And so, women being, working moms, and, some of them do take care of their aging parents too. They're living longer. I feel like it's like the perfect career for women to enter into.
So important and gives us a lot of perspective. Well, we have really enjoyed our time and we are nearing the end. So walk us through, if you could go back to Sanya and give her a little bit of advice, what would you tell, 18-year-old Sanya about, career and goals and life in general?
Well, I would give 18-year-old Sanya a lot of advice, but I'll keep it simple and come up with one thing. And I would say, network more and network often. So much I think of my story is there were random things that happened, but I really seized the opportunity. And so I think the more people that you talk to, the more people you learn about, that's going to improve your quality of life and what you learn as an individual. And that would be the advice that I'd give my younger self.
Such important advice. Make time for networking. If you could give us a networking tip, if you've done it effectively, like how have you networked successfully?
I have to say, I have networked really well. I have no fear walking into a very intimidating room, and I have no fear to work the entire room now. But I didn't have that skill. But I would say, just have no fear, and just at the end of the day, whether someone is very successful at what they do and they're the most famous person wherever you are, at the end of the day, they're just a human being going through the same thing that you are. So if you can humanize yourself, humanize your experience, what's happening besides the weather, I feel like that might be a little too typical to bring up all the time, but there's something that you can talk about and you can share. So that would probably be a tip I would give you, Lindsey.
Yes, that shared experience. And I agree with you on the weather. I feel like that's the initial one because we all have the weather where we're at, but it's like, wait, how can I get this one step further? And I always would try that with my clients. Like, okay, how can I get this conversation just one step deeper, of this, building that shared experience. So, wow, Sanya, you are a wealth of knowledge. Where can we learn more about JP Morgan Wealth Management?
They can go to www.jpmorganwealthmanagement.com to learn more about us as a firm, our services, and they can also look at great information that's available there in terms of some articles that we have.
Perfect. We're excited to get connected with JP Morgan Wealth Management. Before we let you run, any parting words that you'd want to give our listeners?
I would just say that I truly think this is a very exciting time for the wealth management industry, whether you're in the industry or if you're an investor. I feel like a combination of the tools, the resources, the information out there. Couldn't be a better time. And I would recommend that everyone take a few steps today to do something on their own for their financial security in the future. We're all so busy. I myself am guilty of this. I might have 10 or 20 competing things that I want to do financial wise. But to move the needle forward, I feel like you have to have a plan, at least quarterly, to make sure that you're on top of everything. So that's what I would say.
Okay, we're all going to take one step forward today with our financial future. Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Sanya.
Thank you so much, Lindsey.
Thanks for joining us, and please leave a rating and review. To keep up with future episodes, subscribe to our show and follow us at our Women Working in Wealth social channels. This has been Women Working in Wealth, brought to you by the American College of Financial Services.